11 years that I've been coaching, and over the 15 plus years I've had my own business and my own practice. And I just love to share, and people, I think, have been responsive to me sharing certain things and getting people to think. That's one of the big things that I love more than anything else is I love when people think, not overthink, not overanalyze, but think as in a different perspective around something. Look, there's plenty of strategies and how to do something, but yet so many of us continue to struggle. And perhaps you continue to struggle in how you're building this thing that you are so passionate about, this business of helping people in your respective industry, whether it's physical therapy or pediatrics, mental health, speech and language, or any other health related industry that you're doing, because we are people that want to help others, and yet we continue to struggle in helping ourselves and making sure that we are getting what we want from this business. So I'll be testing this as I share with my clients. Marketing is about testing. It's about trying things out. And I've been wanting to just host a live with Jamey for months, if not years, just real, raw, honest. You're going to get my thoughts, my opinions about things. I ain't holding back. And if there's something you get away from it or out of it, great. If not, then maybe you could just get entertained, or maybe you'll just click off. I do this because I enjoy sharing, and my hope is somebody grabs something of importance that helps them. If you have a question, put it in the chat box. Happy to answer it. In this live with Jamey, it's going to be around money leaks and cash flow. We're running a business and we need money to run that business, and too many of us are not making the money we want. And some of this is easily fixable. So I've been in the industry for 28 years as a physical therapist. I've been in business, private practice for over 15 years. I kind of accidentally got into the coaching world because I was frustrated, beaten up, desperate when I was trying to build and grow my practice. I had no idea what I was doing, but my ego was pretty healthy, and I'm pretty smart and talented of patient care. And I just thought I could just figure it out. And I couldn't. And it started affecting me and my family, my relationships, my staff, and ultimately how well my business was doing. And I went through some financial difficulties. I'll share some stories throughout this, but all kinds of different stories of problem after problem. But I made a commitment. I didn't give up. I had perseverance. It took me 9 years, but I wanted a business that just could operate without me in there day in and day out. That's it. That's all I wanted. If I could get that, then I could expand from there. I thought it would take me maybe 12 months, 18 months, but it took me 9 years. I shared my story. People reached out to me and they asked for help. I actually even wrote a book, Practice Freedom Method, which was my story of how I did it. If you haven't picked it up, you can go ahead and download a free copy on my website, practicefreedomu.com, or you can go to Amazon. And it was something I just felt compelled to write because I wanted to share with people that there is some serious shit happening in our lives. We don't talk about it at conferences. We don't talk about it at workshops, and too many podcasts and people out there and gurus and talking heads like myself do not talk about. But yet I was experiencing, and so many other people were experiencing. So I moved into helping people build and grow their business and deal with this stuff that wasn't being dealt with. And that's how the Practice Freedom U actually got started. It was almost accidental. So, but that's 11 years ago. So it's been just an amazing journey for me, for all the great people that I've that I've worked with, my coaches and all that, just seeing the results has just been so just impactful to me. So I just have more and more energy than I ever have, wanting to continue to serve and help every single person who wants to build and grow a successful business, have an amazing life, actually have it all. I think sometimes we are told, or maybe how we're brought up, that if someone wins, someone else loses. Winners and losers. Don't feel bad about the people who lost the Super Bowl. They're all multi-millionaires. They all have pretty amazing lives. They all play a sport that they love. Now, disappointed they didn't win the game that only one team wins every year? Sure, but they're all winning. And I think we are winning as well. We are business owners. We own our stuff. We get to create something out of our imagination of what we think and how we believe it should be, how we want to treat patients, how we want to impact and heal and help the world. We get to do that. We're winning when we just sign up and put our shingle out. We're also winning when we start to create this business that also gives us a life. You see, freedom to me means choice. Practice freedom. You have a practice or a business of choice. And what just crushes me is when people create this business, work their butt off, hey, work and effort is required, but then years later, it doesn't diminish. You're working more, but you're taking home less. You're working more, yet the challenges that you're having are still the challenges that you're having. And this business isn't a business. It's like an indentured servitude. Like you're trapped in it. I had a conversation with a client yesterday, actually a prospective client yesterday, who ended up coming into our program. And we talked about feeling trapped, feeling chained to the business, feeling that I created this thing and now I can't get out of my own business. And when that happens, we justify it. We have to. Our ego is fragile. So we justify of, well, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to just work 60 hours a week. That's what everyone does. It's business. That's the way it does. Or you say, well, you know, there's no good people out there, and you know, I got to do what I got to do, and I can't seem to hire because nobody's out there. Or the million of other reasons and limited beliefs that we sell ourselves to make it feel okay that we're in this position. And I was there for years. But that's not the story that you have to believe. That's not the story you have to abide to. The story can be whatever narrative you want it to be. We're entrepreneurs, baby. The idea of entrepreneurs is we get to create what we want. We get to bring on and surround ourselves with the people of who we want, and we get to do it when we want. And if you're not doing that and you're a business owner, then at some level you're trapped by the thing that you're doing. What you want, with who you want, when you want. That to me is freedom. That to me is the openness of we get to create. So throughout these live with Jamey, the $1 million practice, which is what I'm calling this, I'm going to dive into all kinds of stuff. So let's talk about money. First of all, I learned of this concept, I don't know how many years ago, but this person shared this idea called money blocks. A money block is some type of resistance that you have that moves you to make decisions that doesn't bring money into your life. I've seen myself make decisions that literally sabotages my business as my business is starting to grow and make money. And not until I was working with my coach, my mentor, that I didn't even realize that was happening until he pointed it out multiple times. I was reading in a book that talked about money blocks, that talked about how we sabotage unknowingly things that we're uncomfortable with. I used to talk about abundance a lot, abundance versus scarcity. Scarcity simply just means there's not enough. Abundance means there's plenty for everyone. There's endless opportunity. It's a mind shift of whatever you believe in. I talked about abundance, but at the time, I acted in scarcity. I acted that there wasn't enough. There wasn't enough patience. and I had to grab my own. There wasn't enough opportunity and money, and I had to grab my own. I understood the abundance, but my actions weren't aligned with it, which I believe limited me in building and growing my business. And the same thing happened in money. I grew up like, I guess some other people have, with, middle class household. And my parents occasionally, had arguments around money. I think most of us have at some point, but it got pretty bad at times. One story, it got so bad that we couldn't buy paper towels. I was at the store, put a big thing of paper towels, and I remember my mom going, we don't need paper towels. And instead of paper towels, we used to get napkins from McDonald's and Roy Rogers because they were free. That stays with you. This is probably 40 some years ago, but it stays with you and it shapes how you see things. You hear arguments around money. You hear perspectives from other people that you admire, neighbors, around money. You hear sayings of money is the root of all evil, which of course is not the entire saying. And then flash forward, you're in a business making decisions around money and wondering why I'm not making the money that I want to be making or I feel I should be making. So I dove in and done a lot of work around money, just my own mental perspective around money, and trying to pinpoint what are these stories that I took away from when I was younger, and more importantly, how can I change the narrative? And I did. I'm still working on it. I think we all are, right? We're all a work in progress. But I did. And voila, more money started coming in, not magically. It just came in because I was more open to it. My decisions I was making, I was more open to it. I want to share a couple things a little more tangibly around your business. So if you're on here and you're a business owner, specifically practice owner, you have something called a utilization metric or a productivity metric. That simply just means you have X number of patient or client slots on your calendar or the calendar of your staff, and a certain percentage of them are full. They have someone actually in it that's being seen. The difference between the two is your utilization rate. That's as simple as I can make it. And what I see, and if you've heard me speak before about metrics or KPIs, key performance indicators, my favorite one is utilization. Why? Because in the hundreds and hundreds of practices that I've done an analysis on, basically we kind of reviewed their business and their numbers, utilization was by far the number one thing that was limiting their ability to make money. In other words, the staff that they were paying was not seeing enough people, helping enough people to meet what you're paying that person in salary and benefits and everything else, as well as your overhead. That's a really big deal. Because if you're doing, let's say, 65, 70% utilization, that means you could, assuming your staff is salary or something like that, you could get busier, helping more people, billing out more money coming in, but your overhead hasn't changed. Your fixed cost of salary, rent, internet, what other expenses yet doesn't change. So it's basically pure bottom line profit. 500 visits a month, but you're only doing 350. Even if you raised it 50 visits a month at $100, that's $5,000. All of a sudden you have $5,000 in your pocket every month, 60,000 bucks a month or a year. So utilization becomes a huge metric. That's like the number one thing. So if you haven't really looked at that, or you're not looking at it consistently, that is absolutely one that you want to look at on a consistent basis. I would say minimum every month. I also like looking at it in periods of time, like what has been the trend of the last 3 months or the last 6 months. There's lots of different ways you can create it, but you just start looking at the picture of it and it'll show you. Then of course, It doesn't tell you why it's like that. And this is where I think sometimes decision makers, owners especially, we get into trouble. What I love about practice owners is we're all pretty darn smart. We got into school, college, we got into graduate school. You sacrificed in studying. You invested a ton of money, a ton of time, a ton of energy. You came out, you're amazing at your craft, and you had a vision. I believe it should be done this way. You went into your own business or bought an existing business. We feel that because of what we know, because of what we learned, that will transfer into this business. And you probably already know this, it doesn't. But what's interesting is we're problem solvers. When I used to treat patients, I'm asking questions, doing tests, trying to figure out what's going on. Well, that's exactly what we do in our business, yet we don't do it the same way. We try to figure it all out in the moment in our heads. No testing, no MRIs, no x-rays, no manual muscle tests, no movement test, no palpation, right? No assessments. We just figure it out. They say the problem and we just start spouting out, this is what you need to do. There's a process to it. And I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to, and I ask one simple question when we're on the phone talking about, whether they want coaching or whatever. I go, well, before we talk about that, I mean, do you have metrics? Do you have a dashboard? Are you clear about what's going on? Because if you're not clear about what's going on, isn't it possible that the solution you're saying what the problem is isn't the problem? I'll repeat that. Well, Jamey, the problem is there's no good therapists out there and I can't find anybody. Really, that's the problem. Specifically that you have, that if you solve, would solve everything else. I've never seen that. I'm not saying that's not a problem. It is, but it may not be your problem. So really having clarity around your business, which metrics and key performance indicators do, the more clear the problem, the more obvious the solution. When you're not sure about what you need to do, you need more information. You need to get more clear about what's really going on. And that's difficult to do. When you're so close in the business, there's an emotion of the business. You got fires you're putting out. You got people asking questions. It's hard to do. So that's number one. Number two, plan of care. Plan of care is somebody comes into your practice. You ask them some questions. That's the subjective. You do some tests. That's the objective. You put those two together, plus with your experience, and you give them your assessment. What you think is going on. And then you give them the plan. Here's what I think we should do. Here's why. And here's what I anticipate is the outcome. It's medicine, so we're still practicing medicine. There's no guarantees, of course. There's a communication gap that happens between clearly communicating the plan, getting agreement from the patient, and then scheduling right then and there, like the same visit, on the calendar. I can count on two hands the number of people that I've spoken to in 11 years that do that consistently in their business before they were working with us. It is not common, although it seems obvious. I never used to do that. As soon as I found something, like if I'm working on someone's neck and saying, turn your neck, what's going on there? Boom, C6, C7, it's not moving real well. I would just treat it right then and there. I would treat as I'm going. Instead of doing a full plan of care, I would say, you know what, let's just do this. Let me just see it a couple times a week for a couple of weeks. We'll see how it's going, then we'll go from there. Even though I knew it would take longer, I didn't communicate because there was something in my own brain that just, I don't know why. I just never did. Do your subjective and objective, be clear on the communication of the assessment, be clear on the plan of care, explain how many times you need to be seen, the frequency of it, and how it's going to go so people can understand that and ask any questions. And then my favorite question, I call this the $1 million question. Is there anything coming up between now and, let's say, 6 weeks from now, if you're in the PT field, that will prevent you from committing to this plan? You're in the pediatric thing, anything now and 3 months from now. Mental health, same thing. What you're asking is agreement. Agreement is key. Agreement is critical. You're not just telling. It's an opportunity for them to say, amen. Or it may be difficult at work. I got a big project coming up. Or, you know what, I'm going on vacation the next week or two, which is great because then you can troubleshoot around those issues. So that plan of care is critical. The other thing is schedule it all right then. Why? It's on the calendar. And once it's on the calendar, it's easy just to commit to the calendar. You're making it easier for your client to do it. I saw like a 20% increase the moment I did this. And I was like, wow. Plus, it was just so much easier. Everyone wins with this, by the way. So that's number 2, plan of cares, scheduling them out, communicating clearly. And the other area that I see people leaking money is not collecting what they need to be collecting. I learned this from an EMR that I had years ago. So once we get the insurance and everything, I'll collect all the money up front, or at least the money for the visit. You'll never have any AR, easy peasy. But insurance-wise, the key is be really clear on what someone owes, whether it's a percentage, whether it's a copay, whether it's a deductible, and collect it. I know that sounds simple, but again, I can't tell you how many times I've looked at companies and I asked them, what's your percentage collection rate at the front? Because first of all, in order to have a percentage, you need 2 numbers. 1, how much should you collect for that given day? And 2, how much did you collect? The difference is the percentage. So if you're supposed to collect $100 and you collected 90, then you collected 90%. Just by going through the idea of figuring out how to get those numbers, that's magic right there. That system that you're creating, that's magic. Plus, of course, it creates accountability to the front. And then if they're having difficulty, you can work on them and train them. And a lot of money could be leaking right out of that front desk. You're only collecting 80% instead of 100%. That's 20% of over the counter. Between copays, deductibles, supplies, that's a lot of money, especially in a small business. But heck, even in a bigger business, it's a lot of money because you're seeing more patients. So it's a lot of money no matter how you look at it. And it's an easy fix. And it's money you should already be collecting. But of course, it's, well, how do you communicate that? There's lots of other things that go into how you're going to create the SOP, standard operating procedure, and how you're going to communicate and train your people to do this. So from a tactical standpoint around cash flow, besides the money blocks I talked about, check your utilization, check your plan of cares, and check your front desk collections. I'll guarantee it. Until someone proves me wrong, I guarantee you're losing money on 1 or 2 or all of those areas. And if you tighten it up, it's going to be more cash flow and it's going to be a smoother running business where then you are going to have more time because you're going to get less problems from those areas because they're going to be fixed. And you're going to get more sleep because you're not going to be worried as much about money. If you have any comments, if you have any opinions about Live with Jamey, my first one, the $1 Million Practice, feel free to put them on LinkedIn, put them on my Facebook. Give me some feedback. Let me know what you would like to see, what you'd like to hear. I want to keep this real. I want to keep this honest. I want to keep this genuine. And I want to keep this with just my perspective on what I see. I don't believe time equals wisdom. I believe experience equals wisdom. And I'd like to say I have time and a hell of a lot of experience, especially making a lot of just crazy mistakes. But the other thing that's really accelerated is not just, again, me being a business owner, but working with hundreds of other people and learning from all of these amazing people, struggles that they've had, the successes that they've had, and I want to just share my perspective. So if there is something you want to hear, you could just say, you know, Jamey, I'd love to hear your perspective around blank. I'll give you my thought around it if I have a thought. Some things I just don't really think about too much. Other than that, I think I'm going to let this one go. I hope you got something out of it, whatever it is. I hope you got something. Feel free to share If you'd like to follow me, follow me, follow me on my YouTube, follow me on my other social channels. And if you are interested in like getting some more stuff, what I would recommend is taking our quiz. We have a practice quiz that takes you about 5 minutes. It's asking you questions that you may not ask yourself to understand a little bit more about your business. If you'd like, take the practice quiz, and if it so moves you, you can set up a call and we can talk more about your business. But I'll leave that up to you. Other than that, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and be on the lookout again, live with Jamey, the $1 Million Practice.